This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Can you repeat the part of the stuff where you said all about the things?
All this negativity that's in this town sucks.
It checks out.
It's a covenant cleanup. It's a covenant cleanup. It's a covenant cleanup. Hey, what's up, boss? All righty now. What a wonderful Tuesday this is. It is a Timberwolves Talker Tuesday as we rise and shine at 9 at FM 100.3 KFAN. Brett Blakemore produces, and I'm Paul Allen. Special guest in studio to begin festivities.
Fox.
What was it like calling Jimmy Butler games when he was here? And good morning.
Good morning, PA. Let's see. That was only, it was a brief period of time in life. So he was here for 17, 18, a brief period to begin 18, 19. When Jimmy is dialed in and playing as a member of, with your guys, he can be really good. We can see what he can do. He's been to multiple NBA finals. He had a great run in Miami until it ended, which it always ends badly with Jimmy, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Miami. Yeah. And I really thought, Paul, that this season it was going to be tough for him to find a situation. You finally, at one point, one of these superstars is going to work their way out of a situation and find that they have nowhere to go. And I think this Golden State just thing, it was probably the only option where it would work, and it's been masterful. They've been really good at the end of the regular season. They go through 7 games to get past Houston, but they're there in the second round, and playoff Jimmy is dialed in, and he's going to be a handful.
Alan Horton, nearly two-decade Timberwolves radio play-by-play voice.
Fox.
The Dubs are here tonight for Game 1 of this second-round series, and to follow Alan at Wolves Radio for some sweet nuggets up to, during, and after this series against the Golden State Warriors. If teams incur rust from not playing in nearly a week, what does it generally look like?
I think you'd find that they'll be a little out of sync. You would not see the flow maybe that the Wolves were in that series against L.A. You could see missed shots, although I think you could argue the Wolves got off to a great shooting performance in Game 1 against the Lakers, and the shooting kind of went sideways after that. But I think this is where you want to be, and this is where the Wolves have been at their best the last 2 years. When you give Chris Finch and his staff time after the end of the regular season to face a Phoenix team that you had lost 4 straight in the regular season to come up with a game plan, to implement that game plan, to give his players rest, recuperation, and then preparation. You saw what happened. They swept Phoenix in 4 games. You get rid of that. Now you've got a good period of time to prepare for Denver. That paid off. The one series you didn't have that preparation time was Dallas in the Western Conference Finals, and they lose that. I think if they had finished off Denver in a little quicker, 5 or 6 games perhaps. You're up 2-0. You win both those games on Denver's home floor. They should have closed out Denver earlier. And if they did, I think it would have been could have been a different result in that Western Conference Finals. And so this year, you've got the week to prepare for LA. They dominate the Lakers. I mean, it was team basketball versus a team that's centered around 2 high-end individuals. And it was awesome to see that the Wolves actually had a team. They had options. They could go to this. They could go to that. Lakers had nothing to go to. That's why JJ just doubled down on going with his small ball lineup, trying to play that thing 48 minutes a game. Guess what? That doesn't work in the postseason. And so when you give Chris Finch and his staff time to prepare, there's a really good success level over the last 2 years.
Now, this evening, shortly after 8:30 on KFAN, Alan Horton and Jim Peterson by his side calling Game 1, Wolves and Golden State Warriors. That will be the final first game of the second round. And holy cow with the first 3. I mean, Indiana, as an appetizer, went into Cleveland and beat Cleveland. So now what's going to happen night number 2? The Boston Celtics are going to blow a 20-point lead, lose in overtime at home to the Knickerbockers. And Joker and Aaron Gordon and the Nuggets are going to run down OKC at their place in game number 1 and win the game. How about that?
Masterful performance by Denver last night. And just keep hanging around, keep plugging away, take advantage of every possession, feed Jokic constantly, and good things happen for that team. And Aaron Gordon has 2. This one wasn't a buzzer beater, but his 3 with 2.8 seconds left is basically his second game winner of the postseason. I mean, just masterful play down the stretch. And watching OKC, I had flashbacks to when the Wolves went there, PA, and came back from 23 down in the fourth quarter.
February.
Where even the best of teams can go through stretches where nothing works. And the Wolves tracked them down that night back in probably February. And Denver tracked them down last night. Just amazing to see.
Yeah, I was at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine, and it began. That game, I believe, was on a Monday, and Tuesday was our first radio show, and I'm on Eastern Time. I think it was a later game. It might have been a nationally televised game, and the Wolves were getting killed in that game against OKC. So I go to sleep, wake up the next morning, read about the comeback and everything. And so anything's possible when the Timberwolves play Oklahoma City and vice versa incredibly well. But that could be next. What's now is the Wolves and the Dubs. Now,
that's what makes this league so great, PA, is this, and sports in general, right?
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen. Now, does it happen every single night? No, but on those nights where you're just like, it's happened to all of us, right? Where you're like, I turn this off, I'm done with it. Yeah. It's a fait accompli.
Yes.
And then you realize, oh my God, I should have stayed with it. I should have watched. Yeah. But that's what makes these, especially the playoffs, just incredible.
With the exception of Major League Baseball, where at the end of the equation, like the LA Dodgers will find their way to some Japanese superstar or Mookie Betts at the trading deadline, and they'll pump all the cash in, and they'll probably win the World Series.
They'll win 100-plus games and be in the World Series almost every year. Yeah, baseball might be a different animal, though playoff baseball to me still is...
it's awesome.
It is awesome. There's
and
no
playoff hockey.
Oh, playoff hockey. Yeah. And the Game 7 in Winnipeg the other night, just awesome. Toronto, good for the Maple Leafs. Right. I always have a soft spot in my heart for them. I grew up a Bruins fan, but Toronto's got such history and they've had such misery, sort of the former Red Sox and Cubs of National Hockey League. But the sports are incredible, and it's going to be that incredibleness is going to come into play tonight. I think fans are just itching to get this game underway.
So, did you grow up a Celtics fan?
I did. I grew up in Western Massachusetts, so I was Red Sox, Patriots, Bruins, and Celtics. Red Sox were just everywhere in the summertime because they have hundreds and hundreds of radio affiliates. And so across the Northeast, you could just turn the dial back in that day. I don't know if there are any still turning dials anymore, but you could just flip around when you're driving around. You'd find an affiliate and you pick up Red Sox baseball. Celtics, obviously, in the 80s. Yeah. When I was in my teenage years, that's when I started to love basketballs, watching Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale and the whole Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, all those guys. And then the Patriots were well, off the radar almost and playing in a crappy little stadium. It was Schaefer Stadium, I think, at the time. Schlitz Stadium, one of those two beers had the sponsorship. But before their run with Tom Brady and everything.
Have you met Wild Radio Vox Joe O'Donnell?
I have not. We've corresponded a little bit, and we follow each other on Twitter, but we have not overlapped.
Well, and the reason I ask is he's from the Philadelphia area. You're from Western Massachusetts, is what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you grow up a Bees fan. You're a Bruins fan. He grows up a Flyers fan, probably right after the Broad Street Bully days.
Yep.
And then Joe appreciates basketball, probably the way you appreciate hockey, with the NBA being high on the adoration chart. So, like, if you guys knew each other when you were kids, Voxes in training and stuff, I mean, you would have been a Celtics fan and him a Sixers fan right after that thing was super hot and heavy with Bird and Dr. J and all that, right?
Yep, no doubt about it. In fact, I remember going to the Boston Garden in 1986. So it was the same day the Patriots got blown out by the Bears in the Super Bowl. And earlier in the day, there was a Sixers-Celtics game at the Garden. And you go in there in the middle of winter. It's 0 degrees outside, and inside that garden is it's about 89 degrees. Everybody's sweating.
Yeah.
And the Celtics were down big the whole game. End of third quarter, they go on a run, and Bird hits what I think was probably a 40-footer at the time, but it felt like a length of the floor type of shot at the end of the third. And I specifically remember this. It goes in, Celtics go on to win, but at that moment, yelling at the top of my lungs, and I couldn't hear myself yell. And that was the first time I realized, wow, this is a pretty cool atmosphere. It's a great environment.
So you saw Bird at the Boston Garden?
Yeah, absolutely.
Damn.
Yeah.
Was Cornbread Maxwell still playing?
I don't think Maxwell was. This was post him.
Yeah.
But it was McHale and it was Bird and Parrish and, listening to, watching the games. I never got a chance to hear Johnny Most because I don't know if their affiliates didn't come out to the western part of the state. And when I say western part of the state, people from Massachusetts think, is that Worcester? No,
right.
It's a little further than that. Worcester's just outside of Boston in my eyes. They're talking, what, Springfield? I'm like, go another hour east. I'm on the border of Vermont and New York, so right up in the upper corner there.
Well, you mentioned the name of former Celtics immortality box, Johnny Most.
Yeah.
And when there was that epic playoff game, I believe against the Pistons, where Bird stole the ball, got it to Dennis Johnson, God rest his soul, and so Bird steals the inbound. You remember, right?
Yeah.
DJ makes it.
Yeah.
Well, that game, Johnny Most, I believe it was after that game. It was right around there. He had to go to the hospital because he didn't use headphones. Okay, so like old school Clippers Vox Ralph Lawler.
Yeah, he's got the stick mic.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I graduate high school mid-'80s, Southern California. Ralph had just started with the Clippers, and he would, do the old school hold his ear up so he could get the right tone, and he would hold the stick mic.
Yep.
So then, within the last 8 years, I go to a Wolves Clippers game, and there's Ralph Lawler still calling the games.
Yep.
Stu Lance, I think, still calls Lakers games, right?
He does.
And he worked with Chick Hearn, when I was in high school in Southern California. But Johnny Most, the plastic part of his earpiece it was lodged so deeply in his ear, it went so deeply in the canal, he couldn't get it out.
Oh my gosh.
And then he kept pushing it, and then it got in a compromising spot, and he had to, I think after that game or right around there,
that is fascinating.
I can't hear. And he had to go have it excavated, so to speak, from his ear.
Fans should probably go to YouTube and try to find some Johnny Most just to hear his voice, his gravelly voice, and he would smoke constantly. And he's so beloved with the Celtics that even Bird and those guys would play tricks on him and stuff like that. He was as symbolic of the franchise as Red Auerbach. He'd just been there for so long.
That's the voice of Alan Horton. He's here for a couple of segments to jumpstart 9 to noon. He's the radio play-by-play voice for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And you will hear Alan and former Warrior Jim Peterson this evening on FM 100.3 KFAN. Before that, we have a pregame show, Howling with the Homies, Maxwell Fuller and Parker Fox. They'll be at Target Center, I believe, from 6:30 until 8. So stop by and say hello. It's a Brett Blakemore production, and I'm Paul Allen. When we return, we will hardcore preview this series with the Vox. But first, Double B has this.
The Cash Thing, the fan at BigDeck.com. I'm going to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Head to KFAN.com and the keyword check. The keyword check, KFAN.com, keyword check.
Hey, friend. I know how it feels, waking up exhausted after multiple trips to the bathroom and feeling embarrassed by sudden leaks. I used to be constantly on edge, searching for a restroom whenever I was out. Then I discovered Better Woman. I was skeptical at first, but 2 months in, everything changed. I experienced improved bladder control, no more heart-stopping moments when I laugh or sneeze, less urge to go, deeper and more restful sleep. I finally felt like myself again, confident and in control. Better Woman is natural, effective, and trusted by women for over 25 years. Ready to take back your control? Head over to BeBetterNow.com to order your supply today. That's BeBetterNow.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed. Individual results may vary.
Bonus Box is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. 10 are keywords, and to learn more, head to KFAN.com. Bonus Box presented by BigDeck.com.
The civil servant, Johnny Kotishka, texted Nordo and I yesterday asking for your take on this, Alan Horton, at Wolves Radio. Following, please. What do you think of this? Mike Conley sometimes checking Draymond Green to see if Green goes out of body and tries to score 20. I mean, we're at the depths of the analysis here when the civil servant has me present this to you. But I was thinking like Austin Reeves, Julius Randle. It had its moments, taking Julius out of his passing game, but then it all went kaput. So trying to suck Draymond Green into being like, I got a little, watch me go.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Right.
I mean, we saw Mike Conley on Rui Hachimura, and then they tried to get the Lakers kind of out of sync where, hey, you got that matchup, you might want to take advantage of it, but Rui posting up is not really their offense. It takes the ball out of Luka's hands, It takes the ball out of LeBron's hands.
Same with Dre.
And you could do the same thing with Draymond Green. Because of his challenges scoring, you can put different people on him. And maybe you do at some point throw Mike Conley on there. Maybe you get a nice swinging elbow from Draymond as he pivots and he knocks Mike in the head, and then he's one step closer to getting himself suspended.
Right.
He's got 2 flagrant fouls in the postseason already.
Jeez.
So flagrant foul ones are worth 1 point in the postseason. If you get to 4 points, you're suspended for a game. He already has 2.
Damn.
Which makes the Game 7 call the other night very interesting. When they played Houston and he flailed and hit, I think it was Dylan Brooks in the face. You know, this flailing by Draymond, he's not fooling anyone with his antics. We've seen the scissor kick where he falls on the floor and he likes to drag his feet across an opponent's head.
Yeah, try to kick in the spot.
Yeah, exactly. He just pretends like, oh, that was just a natural act. Or Dylan Brooks knocks the ball away. I think it could, but the Fred VanVleet one was Game 6, but Game 7, I think it was Brooks, and then he follows through and punches Dylan Brooks right in the face. Like, they call that a technical rather than a flagrant, and I wonder sometimes about the difference between those two and how referees decide which to apply, because if you apply it to a flagrant foul, well, now he's even one step closer to a postseason suspension, which, remember, cost the Golden State Warriors a title back in 2016 when they were playing LeBron and the Cavaliers. He got suspended for 1 game, and the Cavs were able to come back from 3-1 down to win that.
Right. Well, I mean, just take it locally to the regular season. When the non-call on Gabe Vincent against Anthony Edwards transpired at Crypto.com, and gets teased. So now he's suspended for that Utah game, and they lose by 1. and then we spend the entire month of the season trying to figure out how they can get out of the play-in. Into the equation, if they had just, you've got a bunch of games there, and we're certainly not going to dwell on this very long now, but it's akin to what you said, where if Edwards plays that game, they win that game. Yep. I think they might have been the 4 seed, but this is a 6 and a 7. That doesn't happen frequently. Now, with this evening's game and the first one being here, who's more villainous? Who do you think the crowd's going to get after more? Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green? I think probably Jimmy, just because he's ducked the Wolves for 3-4 straight years right now. It's been over 1,200 days since he last played a game at Target Center. It was that game that the Wolves had Anthony Edwards. I thought it was his best in-game dunk he's ever had when he dunked over Gabe Vincent, and Curtis Blair decided, you know what, I'm not a fan of that dunk. I'm going to call an offensive foul. And so it's wiped. Unfortunately, that highlight technically is wiped from NBA history, right? Like, the league can't promote it. The Wolves can't promote it because it didn't happen. It was an offensive foul. And the Wolves didn't challenge. And, they had their reasons for not challenging. Trust me, because I give Chris Finch a hard time about that sometimes. Hey, he should have challenged. That was one of the best dunks of all time. He's like, I'm trying to win a game here, okay? I'm not worried about at Wolves Radio's calls on Anthony Edwards dunks. I want to win over the Heat, which they got in that game. So I think Jimmy Butler probably takes the top spot, and then Draymond's right behind him. Do you anticipate, before picks, before switches, before scheming, Jimmy has to start on Anthony, right? I think how they match up against the Wolves offense, yes, is fascinating, because Gary Payton missed Game 7. He's a premier defensive player. It's a guy you can throw at Anthony Edwards, Moses Moody, but those guys haven't been in the starting lineup. So, I think Jimmy might start on Anthony Edwards. There's some tough matchups for them. I think when we put Jaden McDaniels on Steph Curry, at least to start, and again, like you said, once you get into a play, it's chaos out there. There's switches all over the place. Now, Golden State doesn't really hunt pick and roll like the Lakers did. I think this is a really contrasting style. Seeing a Laker offense that's so ISO heavy, so Luka dominant, that now you go to a Golden State system which is way more egalitarian. You're running off ball, you're running screens, player movement, ball movement. Curry's never going to stop running. It's a much different offense to face. But I think the Wolves, like in that Lakers series, when you have Julius on LeBron James, you got Jaden on Luka. And you've got Anthony Edwards, and the Lakers are used to having their third best player, Austin Reeves, play against a pretty average defender. Ant's not average, right? Especially in the postseason, right? And so the Wolves, I think, are uniquely, like I said earlier, it's a team. They showed that they are a better team than the Lakers, and I think when you're a better team, you've got depth, you've got options, and I think the Wolves have that against Golden State. In the final game against the Rockets, Game 7, the Warriors fooled the Rockets all game Sunday with a consistent zone defense. Yeah. I mean, they played more zone in that game than I think I've ever seen an NBA team play. You're going back down the floor. It's just zone to zone. I'm like, how is this working? Right. Yeah. But for the Warriors, from in following stuff day after and learning more about the take, Houston would not accept the mid-rangers and soundly was defeated. So Kerr was kind of like, okay, if you want to shoot from 25 or beyond, go ahead. You're not going to get down the key and slam on us, so you can take these mid-rangers. We don't think you will. We don't think you'll be patient enough to do that. And he was right. So does it make sense to play the Timberwolves like that with an abundance of zone? I think we will see zone in this series. That was a zone that's not sort of a traditional just 2-3, 1-3-1, something like that. It's a very sort of morphed zone that is very heavy Steph Curry centric. And it's almost multiple people running at him, whether he's got the ball or not. And that's where his gravity takes over. Defenses react so much to Steph Curry that's a huge reason why Buddy Hield knocked down 9 threes and had 23 points in the first half. You can bottle up, and Curry didn't score until I think late in that second quarter of Game 7. And here's Houston probably thinking, well, we've kept Curry off the map. He hasn't scored a point. And yet you look up at the scoreboard and you're still trailing by 7 or 8 points. Golden State was still winning despite Curry not having scored a point to that point. And so
you can't get lulled into thinking just because you've held Steph Curry in check that you're going to win the game. I think Golden State has shown that they do have the ability, whether it's Buddy Hield, they've got Jimmy Butler as a secondary scorer who can do his own thing in the playoffs. They've got talent around him. So just you want to pay heavy attention to Steph. And in the 3 wins that Golden State had against Minnesota in the regular season, all before the Jimmy Butler trade, it was Steph Curry who averaged about 30 points, close to 8-9 assists in there. And so you do have to pay heavy attention to him, and he was the reason they won those 3 games against the Wolves in the regular season. But this is a deeper team than that, and while you have to pay him heavy attention, well, you just can't get too focused on Curry.
Mm-hmm. Is Steph one of the most likable superstars?
I think so.
In any sport.
Who hates him?
In the history of sports, maybe. Right?
I don't know anybody who hates him. How can you hate him? He never says anything wrong. He doesn't do anything wrong. He plays the game the right way. I will say in the 4, maybe one little thing that I noticed in the meetings against the Wolves, a couple of times against Jaden McDaniels, he did go down a little bit easily on drives, maybe a little contact, and he falls down, foul against Jaden McDaniels. I thought there were a couple of those moments in that series, and maybe Jaden's defense was good enough against him to cause him to do that. Yeah. But there's a little bit of that flopping type stuff with Steph Curry, but not certainly doesn't compare to what his teammate Draymond Green does. And just to wrap up the Draymond point, Paul, yeah. I just hope that the referees call fouls, technicals, flagrants against Draymond as they would any other player in the league. I think that's all we want. Just call it fairly. There are a different set of rules for Draymond Green than the rest of the league. Really? You cannot tell me otherwise. Really? When he argues to officials, when he has overt gestures, clapping in their faces, tracking them down. He got a flagrant Game 6, didn't like the call, and started stalking down the official. And the official was backpedaling all the way to the sideline. Hold your ground, tee him up. I don't care about the consequences. Don't worry about how many tees he's got or flagrant fouls he's got towards a possible suspension. Treat him like any other player on the floor, and let's enjoy some basketball. I just don't. I hope this does not become a story in this series, the antics of Draymond Green, because I think we will see his antics. He can't help himself.
I'm glad you said that, because I actually was thinking, not watching it as closely as you, I thought it was the other side of the equation, where into the Lakers series, okay, Luka winds his way to calls, and plus he's difficult to officiate in the first place because he's so big. LeBron may be in that fishbowl of Jordan rules. And I actually would think that it would be like 55-45 against Draymond in those 50-50 situations. They actually slightly would go against him because of his past performances, but you're saying that's not the case.
No, I think he gets away, and I think I think he gets away with more than any other player in the league. It's just, I don't even think that's putting Timberwolves glasses on. I think it's just watching the game and seeing what he gets away with versus everybody else. And all you want is just call it fairly, call it evenly. And I wonder at some point, I don't think this will happen, especially in the postseason, but I just wonder if someone's eventually going to say, you know what, enough is enough, and just after all his antics, someone just clocks him in the face, and then the league has a real problem. If players start to revolt against Draymond and his antics, the league hasn't taken care of this guy. You could argue that he should have been suspended multiple more times than he already has in this league. Yeah. I would hate to see that thing escalate. That's all I'm saying.
Punches thrown and scrums incurring. Well, I mean, that's happened a zillion times over the last X amount of years. Punches actually landing. That doesn't happen.
Not very often.
Not very often in the NBA. I mean, you got the agents and the players are so tied together, and they're just so close off the court. And the reason I bring that up is because you when you mentioned you went to the Celtics game, Celtics Sixers Super Bowl Sunday when DeBerg couldn't get by the 85 Bears. Well, that was right around the time Robert Parrish, beloved Chief, became so frustrated with Bill Laimbeer. The Celtics are leading the series. I think it's 3-2, something like that. They have Game 7 at the Boston Garden. So he knows if I punch Bill Laimbeer in the face right now, I'm suspended Game 6, and we may lose, but we'll be back here for Game 7. I think they were leading 3-1. So he just knocked him out in the middle of the key of an Eastern Conference Finals series. Suspended. came back, got him in Game 7. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, players would solve things on the floor, and the league would kind of buy. There were other issues with Robert Parrish and Bill Laimbeer. Some stuff you watched, there was no foul called at all, and these two are basically going at it. I mean, throwing elbows at each other on the free throw line.
Wow.
That was a different era.
Unbelievable.
Now we'd be flagrant fouls left and right,
yes.
Ejections, suspensions, all
Cancel
that kind
culture.
of stuff.
Do you remember when Moses Malone held Larry Bird so Julius Erving could punch him? And I think it was Andrew Toney or Sadale Brate who basically knocked out Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
And sent him like punch drunk in
there were some heated battles back in the day. Bird's face bouncing off the parquet floor, getting into it with Julius Erving. Boy, the Boston Strangler, Andrew Toney. It was unbelievable.
Wasn't Rambis and McHale involved in something too?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That was probably that was the fast break where Rambis just gets clotheslined by McHale, and it changed the entire complexion of the series. I think the Lakers had started off really well, and then it was in LA, and it was a clothesline, a big time, and Rambis went flying head over heels, and it started a little brouhaha. But the Celtics, I think, changed the complexion of that game because the Lakers were more finesse at that time, Boston more grinded out, physical. And that changed that series. That might have been 84, 86, somewhere, one of those 2 years.
You ever watch Netflix?
I do have a subscription to Netflix, yes.
Yeah, I'm not into it that much, but when I do watch it, I'll look for documentaries. I don't know if you've seen this, but I watched it last night. It was, and I don't like to drop spectacular or no hope, like the 0-100 equation, unless I have to. There's a documentary called Malice at the Palace.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed. Did you?
It's a full breakdown for like a couple hours, right?
Whoa! They start with Jermaine O'Neal, incredibly well spoken. And Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson, and Ron Artest, then Ben Wallace.
See, the key to those things is you have to get the key components, and they got all of those guys to talk.
Right. But they, except for Artest, they all had a common thread. We don't like talking about this. There was PTSD from it that nobody will ever imagine unless you were in it. And to have all these suburbanites judging us the way they did when you got no idea who's rolling up behind you, and that's why somebody got cold cocked. I watched it last night, and then I went back like 30 minutes and watched from the beginning of the fight to them describing it again. One interesting thing there, Tim Donaghy. Donaghy.
Yeah.
He was one of the refs.
He was in that game.
Right.
So St. Louis Park's own Mark Boyle, who's now the radio play-by-play voice of he still is the voice of the Indiana Pacers. He broke his back on that play. Artest climbed over him, crushed him to the floor. He had a couple of broken bones in his back after that incident.
Yeah, it's a very detailed, amazing documentary by Netflix.
And it changed the complexion of those Pacers teams, which were really good, by the way. And it was never the same for the next couple of years, and never the same for those guys. It was really more than just one brawl, which is fascinating in and of itself, but then the repercussions of that, the tentacles from that went out for years after that.
There are some players over the course of time in the NBA where you may not think this by looking at them at first blush, but they're like the last people you ever want to mix it up with in any form of fight. Steven Jackson, 100% is one of those guys. I mean, they're coming back to the locker room. Jermaine O'Neal has to be restrained because somebody unhinged a chair at the Palace of Auburn Hills and threw it at him.
Chair is flying.
The chair flying. Somebody took the chair out. And so Jermaine O'Neal's apoplectic. Steven Jackson takes his shirt off, walking through the tunnel. They're throwing bottles at him. They're hitting him in the head, and he's waving his hands like, that's all you got?
Yeah.
And then he says, together we ride. We ride together. And he was like, it's for him, basically paraphrasing, my dog was in trouble. I got the back of my brother, and that's what makes me happiest is the way we stuck up for each other.
Yeah. Ron Artest, another guy you didn't want to mess with.
Right.
They had some key components to that Pacers squad.
But see, Artest, and I don't want to step on the touchdown call for you here on this because you'll love it. I mean, being a guy in the game 2 decades, you'll love it. When Artest went into the locker room, he was afraid Jermaine O'Neal was going to beat him up. Because he's like, I started this whole thing, and now Jermaine's been in 19 different things. This little pudgy guy ran out on the court. Jermaine cold-cocked him and knocked him down. And so there's a camera in the hallway outside the Pacers locker room. and then you hear an uproar. It's because Jermaine O'Neal didn't like what Ron Artest said to him, and Ron said, I just want a closure to know, Jermaine, is this over? And Jermaine O'Neal went after him. So then the Pacers had to stop O'Neal in the civil war against Artest. And they're talking about that. Another one would be Mo Bamba. And it was a game at Target Center.
Yeah.
I can't remember the components involved, but Mo Bamba, when he came in looking for heads, ain't nobody messing with Mo Bamba.
So that was the Austin Rivers,
Yes.
like along the sideline.
Yes.
Like all of a sudden,
Yes.
unless you were like courtside or sort of noticed it was flying under the radar, and all of a sudden you're like, Austin Rivers is taking on the Orlando bench.
Yes.
That was startling.
All right, to this series.
Yep.
Does the every other day cadence of the series schedule up to Game 6 favor the Wolves, given Steph's 37 and Draymond and Jimmy both are 35?
It should, especially coming off a 7-game series. The Wolves had a travel day, a day off, and then 3 straight days of practice. They should be the more rested team. They need to take advantage of that, and I think that needs to show up in their intensity on the defensive end of the floor. They should be more active, and you know, they still want to push the pace, but they don't want to get in a track meet up and down the floor. But they should be the more rested team, and that intensity, I think, will come out here tonight.
A 6 and 7 have met just twice in NBA playoffs history. The 7 won both times. Most recently, 2023. I think the Lakers beat the Dubs. These Warriors aren't your average 7. We know that.
Yep.
But guess what? These Timberwolves aren't your average 6 either, right?
No. Everybody from 2 through 8 is, or 2 through 7, I would say. You can just toss out the seeds. As the Wolves clearly shown. Everything went to chalk except for in the West. The Wolves beating the Lakers and the Warriors beating the Rockets. And there's just not a lot separating those teams. There's 1 or 2 games. That's how tight the West is. That's how good these teams are. So it's really not a 6 versus 7, although technically it is.
Finchie said 9 to noon yesterday that Kerr messes with his lineups quite a bit, as a matter of fact. And he does not expect what we last saw from Golden State to be what we see tonight. So, if so, what could Kerr have up his tattered sleeves?
He's just got a deep bench that, at least early on in the season, he was regularly playing 11 guys in a game. And that was part of their, I think, 12-3 start to the season. But eventually, you can't sustain that in this league. You just can't. There's not enough rhythm for guys to get into. And all of a sudden, now you're, instead of getting 2 equal stints in the first half and second half, you didn't play well in the first, so now you're out in the second. So he's got a deep bench and options to go to. A guy that I think played well against the Wolves in the 4 meetings, Trace Jackson Davis, hasn't been playing lately of much. He'll get some spot minutes here or there. So he's got options.
Is he a big guy?
He is a big guy, and he's not a traditional center, but sort of an undersized center. And I thought he played really well in the 4 meetings. That's a guy that could, you might not see him in this series, or you could see him, playing 20 minutes a night or 15 to 20 minutes a night. Kerr's got options off his bench.
So trip on this. I'll be at the game tonight with my son Derek, and we were chatting about the game yesterday, and he reminded me the last time Draymond Green was here was in the playoffs last year, Western Conference Finals, working with TNT. So he was here in the arena with Shaq, Chuck, and the gang, and he was quite critical of Stifle Tower.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he hates them.
Right, so that's a long-standing thing, right?
It is. It was embarrassing that the league and TNT brought Draymond Green to the Western Conference Finals, and then the arena is chanting, "Draymond, you suck," going into every halftime because he's about to go on the air, and then he tells Luka Doncic, "I don't suck, Rudy sucks." Like it's just lowest common denominator stuff. It's just more typical Draymond. I don't know why they feel like he's the heir apparent to Charles Barkley and Shaq and those guys. I don't think he provides much insight, and I just think it's just more antics of Draymond Green.
He's playing fast for the game tonight.
Fox.
Alan Horton at Wolves Radio. Listen to him on KFAN with former Golden State Warrior Jim Peterson this evening. Game, 8:40-ish?
It's going to be 8:37 tip with a possible 10-minute slide, so take that into account. It could go up to, I always say that, 10-minute slide. People don't understand. So depending on the first game, because we're in the West, we're always the second game of a TNT doubleheader or ESPN doubleheader. So if the first game goes long, then they push it back up to 10 minutes.
I'm going to be in Colorado tomorrow through the weekend. My daughter graduates from college. Thursday, hats in the air. Friday,
the iHeartRadio app is an excellent way to continue with Timberwolves basketball wherever you are. You know that.
I'm on you. No, but here's the bit. Is Friday night, OKC is at Ball Arena. All right, so I started snooping around for some tickets, see what it looks like and everything. If you want to sit within 20 rows, lower level, behind either of the benches, first place I started just to see what's up.
Yeah,
$3,100 a ticket.
$3,100 cash.
Right.
Yep.
$350 minimum, last row corner, Ball Arena. Damn.
You need to reach out to your guy, David Adelman, who's done a very nice job
about that,
filling in for Michael Malone. I shouldn't say filling in. He's taking over, and just a tremendous run for him. Who's probably
he's going to get it.
I would think.
Yep, for sure.
The way this team has responded under him, I think he's got a great chance.
Vox, didn't you always feel when he was an assistant here, he had head coaching to him? Like he would come on 9 to noon frequently, and I'd talk to him and go like, damn, man, he's sharp.
These guys have been I put Ryan Saunders right in that category too. They're coaches' sons. They've been around the game forever. They've just absorbed everything through the years, and it's not it's not a coincidence that Michael Malone, son of Brendan Malone, longtime NBA assistant, got a chance to head coach. Yeah. So Michael Malone brings in both Ryan Saunders and David Adelman, two other coaches' sons. They all kind of know what they've been through and the grind that it is, and both those guys are going to have, I think David Adelman is on a path to success. I think Ryan is as well.
Statsy's playing fast.
Fox.
All right, time for two more. What do you need to see from Jaden and Naz this series?
The Wolves do have depth, and we saw that in the Lakers series. So you can have a big game from Jaden, like game 1 against the Lakers. In game 3, I think, was his career high 30 points. And then he can be quiet other games. Naz can step up, and that's what makes this Timberwolves team so I think dangerous, is that behind Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, you have a plethora of guys that can step up and have big games. Jaden has taken a step, though, in this postseason. His defense has been tremendous. He's the point of attack defender for the best player every single night. This guy probably doesn't get enough credit for what he goes through on the defensive end. And then he's really found a confidence level offensively. He's shooting the ball exceptionally well. And it's not just on threes. His threes have been okay this season. He's shooting about 38% in the postseason from deep. But he's getting it done inside. And he said in that Lakers series, there were times I felt like the tallest guy on the floor. With his reach, he probably is. And I think this might be another series where he feels like he's the tallest guy on the floor. He can attack the rim. He can get his own misses. He can grab other people's rebounds, those type of things. So hopefully Jaden has another big series. And Naz is always capable of a 20-plus scoring night coming off the bench. And maybe if things aren't working with Rudy, well, then Naz gets a few more minutes. And that's what I was talking about with this balance to this team. Yeah. Rudy has the huge game 5. Well, you don't need Naz as much. Julius steps up here, and maybe it's Naz playing more alongside him. That's the kind of balance and depth you need, I think, to make a deep playoff run. I think the Lakers probably look at that Wolves roster and go, man, that depth really crushed us. We have 2 guys, and we have a lot of question marks after that.
DiVincenzo.
Ante.
Won a title with the Bucks and also played with Steph in Golden State. What are you liking about Dante DiVincenzo this playoff season?
Well, he hasn't shot the ball particularly well. He and Nikhil, I would love to see them get going from deep, because they both have not shot the ball well from beyond the arc. And the Wolves really as a team haven't shot it well since that game 1 where they were just lights out from beyond the arc. And the questions were, hey, they're not going to shoot that well from 3 again. And they quite frankly didn't, but they didn't need to, because they could beat the Lakers in so many different areas. But I'd love to see Dante and Nikhil both get going. But even if they're not shooting the 3, they make themselves valuable in other ways. Like Nikhil had the best defensive rating of any player on the Timberwolves in that Lakers series, despite shooting under 30% from beyond the arc. Yes. He's been tremendous defensively. And Dante does a number of different things. He'll average 4 rebounds. He averaged 3 assists. He averaged 2 steals in that Lakers series. So he's doing some of those other things. And I love the way Dante is always attacking. Right? He's got that mindset. He's never shy about shooting it, but he's also he can get physical. He can have some collisions. He collided with LeBron James, and LeBron went down and it was milking it and was down on the floor, may have hurt his knee on the play. Dante's got that kind of physicality to him, not afraid of the moment. Both those guys off the bench, I think you'd love to see them get going from deep.
Lastly, Alan Horton at Wolves Radio. Are you expecting a Timberwolves series win? kind of feeling a Timberwolves series win, or is this bad boy a 50-50 meat grinder?
I'll take the first two. I do think the Wolves are going to win this series.
You only get one.
Well, what was the first?
Are you shipping all in on it? Like, yes, they're going to win the series, or I mostly think they're going to win the series.
So I guess I'll take the first. I think they're going to win the series. Mm-hmm. I think the way they're playing, I think the confidence level, and we haven't even mentioned Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is just checking the box of who he plays the last 2 years. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, check mark. Mm-hmm. Jokic and Murray, check mark. Okay, you lose to Luka and Kyrie. Mm-hmm. They were playing unbelievably. You learn from that. Mm. Then you come back and you beat Luka and LeBron. Now you're facing Curry and Butler. I mean, first off, that stretch is just unbelievable to play those level of opponents. And it won't end. If they win this, well, then you're on to either Jokic and Murray again or possibly Chet and SGA. And then it won't end in the finals, obviously, whoever comes out of the East. But Ant seems to be rising to the occasion, Paul. It's just, if you were to graph his experience level and the way he's tracking, it's just a straight line upwards. This diagonal line. He's doing everything you've asked in the first 5 years, and he's carrying this team along with him. And the way he's playing, he's going to average probably 30 points, close to that, and 8 rebounds and 8 assists. Those are playoff type numbers. That's what Ant's all about, and I think he's going to get dialed in. I think he's got Steph Curry in his sights. He wants to beat Steph Curry.
Smiley and I will come fist bump you tonight, and
I hope so.
Whether it's Wolves Lakers on the road, Wolves Clippers on the road, or wherever. Thanks for being so gracious with my son.
You bet, man.
He's a radio guy. He listens. I'm saying he loves sports on the radio. He listens to you all the time, man. It was a real treat for Derek last year.
That's awesome.
When we were at Crypto.com and we came up and took pictures and everything.
Well, I'm always appreciative when people come up and say hi or wave, and the little platform above the vomitory that goes back into the concession area. Just give a little wave up there. It's a little busy during games and stuff like that, but I always appreciate people who tune in. And if you want to sync up those TVs with the radio call, we're now at the national level, so there's no Michael Grady and Jim Peterson on the local call. So, with the iHeartRadio app, what's great is that you can pause that thing, line it up with your TV, get it all matched up. I'll give the timeout enough that you'll be able to sync that thing up. You'll hear the basketball go through the net, so you can try to time that thing up. And it's a great way, or it's just another option to listen to the game. So tonight it'll be Brian Anderson and the coach Stan Van Gundy on the call. And if it's not for your liking, you want a little more, local knowledge about the team, then tune in to Jim Peterson and I, and we'll get it underway right around just after 8:30.
See you tonight, bud.
Sounds great. Thanks, PA.
Alan Horton, Radio Vox for the Minnesota Timberwolves, at Wolves Radio via Twitter. Now, the other side of the equation takes place about an hour from now. A longtime friend of mine, Greg Papa, who is the San Francisco 49ers play-by-play voice, also does an incredibly popular show on the Golden State Warriors flagship, KNBR. He was a play-by-play voice for the Golden State Warriors for 11 years. Greg knows a lot about basketball. He'll join at about 10:45. You're listening to The Fan.
Hey, friend, I know how this feels. Waking up exhausted after multiple trips to the bathroom and feeling embarrassed by sudden leaks. I used to be constantly on edge, searching for a restroom whenever I was out. Then I discovered Better Woman. I was skeptical at first, but 2 months in, everything changed. I experienced improved bladder control, no more heart-stopping moments when I laugh or sneeze, less urge to go, deeper and more restful sleep. I finally felt like myself again, confident and in control. Better Woman is natural, effective, clinically tested, and trusted by women for over 25 years. Ready to take back your control? Head over to BeBetterNow.com to order your supply today. That's BeBetterNow.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed. Individual results may vary.
Game 1 of the second round tips off tonight, and what better way to watch than with Carboni's Pizza. Visit one of their 30-plus locations to enjoy delicious pizza and get ready for the Minnesota playoff run. Find your nearest Carboni's today at carbonispizza.com.
Didn't drop the 9 to noon age-old nickname for Warriors coach Steve Kerr with the Vox Alan Horton. But around here, for those who listen quasi-frequently, the nickname is Kurachek. A play off Bill Belichick. Multiple rings, an ever-changing style to the deployment of offense and defense. Steve Kerr is widely recognized as one of the best coaches in the history of the NBA. He's elite. He's Kurachek. And sometimes Rube shortchanged those who have the high-end players when actually managing the high-enders and alphas can be difficult in the old ball sharing department. So like with the Phil Jacksons of the world, I always felt that was an underrated facet for them. Likewise for Kurachek. Now, these Warriors, when it comes to alphas, they have two in Steph and Jimmy. Draymond is an alpha, but is cognizant of his lot in life as that of a ham and egger. OKC has one with Shea, but the pips, so to speak, behind him generally hit every note. The Nuggets have one in Joker, and he's the best in show. The Timberwolves, from an alpha standpoint, have two in Anthony and Julius, but the rough and tumble ball of rolling butcher knives knows his role and makes Anthony better. Kurachek, Steve Kerr, Kurachek. What does old Kurachek have up his sleeve for this series? Finch envisions myriad different approaches from the Golden State Warriors. I'm guessing it will involve a big man like Kevon Looney getting increased run to keep up with the bigs. Plus, Looney, who's been kind of lost in the shuffle of late for the Warriors, he's torn up the Wolves in the past and averaged 9 rebounds a game against them last year. Kurachek's approach it's just so much more professional and mature than that of J.J. Redick, the first-time starter for the team with the shine. You see, J.J. benches his reserves for halves at a time and then acts surprised when they are tentative and or off-kilter the next game. Steve Kurachek instead keeps them all sharp because they know they could play like half the game out of nowhere and at any time. So if you're a Jonathan Kuminga or Kevon Looney or Trace Jackson Davis, and you ain't been playing much lately, I mean, you got to be ready to go because Kurachek might throw you in there for 30 minutes if the matchup warrants said decision and you're coming through. And the Dubs generally come through. Just a much more organized, and there are stars on this team with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, but it's different with LeBron and Luka and his whining. Now, Kurachek's defensive approach, as we mentioned with Alan Horton, Game 7 at Houston, it was an utter masterpiece. He played more zone defense in a game than I've ever seen an NBA squad unfurl. And it wasn't the standard 2-1-2 or the 1-3-1 or the 2-3. It floated and it moved and everything, but it was a zone to avoid. So he basically is saying, I mean, let's look at it this way. I mean, seriously, it reminded me of the 2018 Minnesota Vikings at the New England Patriots when Belichick played dime defense almost the entire game. Now, that's 6 defensive backs on the field with the indicator. I don't think your coordinator will lower his passing pride and run the rock like ever. If he does and Dalvin starts smoking us, then I'll change. So the coordinator would be fired after the next game, and Kevin Kalm was on the scene. Now, Game 7 Sunday night at Houston, it reminded me of that 2018 game because Kurachek stayed in that zone, basically telling the Rockets, you guys are too greedy to settle for open mid-range shots. You either want to pick and roll for threes or streak down the key and try to dunk on fools or throw alley-oops. And he was right. The Rockets wouldn't burn them from, say, 15 to 20 feet, and Kurachek peacocked on his flight to the cornfields. This ain't J.J. Redick and LeBron's 10-inch vertical the final 4 minutes of games. This ain't J.J. Redick and Luka the lamb chop eater. These three and Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond Green all rebound and share. Jimmy and Green are very, very defensively tough. And Steph, most times, rebounds with the best guards in the league. And they play for Kurachek. Terrific drama. And it starts tonight, right around 8:30 on KFAN. The Scribe and some football are next.
Military veterans and active duty service members, you could become a certified cyber warrior with just 12 weeks of training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, and IT pros with these skills often enjoy abundant opportunity and a great lifestyle. Protect our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP.
Hey, friend, I know how this feels. Waking up exhausted after multiple trips to the bathroom and feeling embarrassed by sudden leaks. I used to be constantly on edge, searching for a restroom whenever I was out. Then I discovered Better Woman. I was skeptical at first, but 2 months in, everything changed. I experienced improved bladder control, no more heart-stopping moments when I laugh or sneeze, less urge to go, deeper and more restful sleep. I finally felt like myself again, confident and in control. Better Woman is natural, effective, clinically tested, and trusted by women for over 25 years. Ready to take back your control? Head over to BeBetterNow.com to order your supply today. That's BeBetterNow.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed. Individual results may vary.